My name is Aisha Sampson, and today on Baptism Overland, we're installing geometry correction brackets for my lifted Jeep JK. A really good friend of mine who used to be this hardcore Jeeper said to me he spent more money underneath the Jeep than anywhere else in the entire rig. And I don't know why that affected me at the time. Maybe because I hadn't gotten my lift yet and I was about to go do it. And so suddenly it kind of scared me about what kind of money I'm going to be putting into this thing. In fact, when he found out that I was actually going to go and get the lift, he said, "That's a dark path you're about to head down." Not that he was trying to dissuade me from lifting the Jeep. I mean, every Jeeper knows that a Jeep just does not look normal unless it's lifted and sitting on larger tires. I mean, that's just how it should look like. It looks best that way. But what he is saying is once I start delving into this kind of a world, there's going to be things that are going to come up that you're going to need to address and fix. It's almost kind of ironic that the Jeep starts out as stock, we do all these things, and then we have to do other things to bring the ride quality back down to stock, if that makes any sense. It's almost like going full circle. Anyway, when you decide to lift your Jeep, you just have to embrace the fact that you're going to start messing with a lot of things down there, primarily the geometry. When a Jeep comes out of the factory, it's been fine-tuned to sit at that height, and that's how it rolls the best. The ride is smoother, not a lot of bumps, not that noisy. I mean, Jeeps are noisy, but at least it's minimal. But the moment you start to mess with that stuff, well, now you are messing with the way it came out of the factory, which means you're going to run into some issues no matter what kind of lift you do. You can go very minimal on your lift, or you can go really high. Either way, along those lines, you are messing with the way that that Jeep is tuned. Now, when you buy a lift, I mean, you have tons of options. You can go from a very, very cheap kit, which will probably not give you the ride quality that you want, and it will probably break on you, all the way to middle of the ground, all the way to the very far end where you just get everything and you're spending thousands and thousands of dollars. I knew that when I was gonna lift this Jeep, I wanted to get Old Man Emus. I'm a fan of ARB products. I wanted the Old Man Emu kit. However, to get the entire Old Man Emu kit, which included everything from the control arms to the track bars to the sway bar extensions to, shocks and springs, all of that stuff was gonna run about $3,000, and that's $3,000 I do not have. So what I did was I just went with shocks and springs for about $1,000, and that's all I got from Old Man Emu was shocks, springs, $1,000. Now you can take that $1,000 and go buy just a full blown out kit from another company, but I wanted to invest in these particular springs because they were considered HD springs or heavy duty springs. These springs are able to take the load of whatever weight I may decide to put on the vehicle later, from armor to rooftop tent to everything. And I discussed all of that when I bought the springs and installed it. You could check out the video in the description below. That being said, the $1,000 investment I made on the shocks and the springs have been great. It rides really well, but there were some problems. Just like I said, with any kind of lift, there will be problems. The first problem I ran into was the sway bar. At the time, it was sitting on the stock sway bar links that were very short. So what I did to fix that was I bought the JKS quick disconnects. They're adjustable, so I can adjust it so that the sway bar is back to level. And I like it also because now I can disconnect it very easily. In fact, when we went on our first trail after lifting this Jeep, I was able to just take them off rather easily, and I was able to get that articulation. So that fixed that. But one of the problems I kept having with this Jeep was that once I got to about 60 miles per hour and above, I started getting a lot of rattling, like it would just shake. Now let me make this clear. It was not death wobble. Death wobble is very violent. This was not. It just shook a lot more than it needed to. So the first thing I did when you get a problem like that after getting a lift is go get it aligned. So I went to go get the Jeep aligned, and I even had the tires balanced just in case they weren't balanced properly when they were sent to me. Got that fixed, rode better, but then as soon as I start hitting that 65, 70 mile an hour mark, there comes the shake again. So I spoke to a couple of friends of mine, and they said to me, well, if you already got it balanced and you already got it aligned, then your problem has to be geometry. Now, the Jeep wasn't really lifted that much, but just a little bit of lift will already throw off the geometry of the Jeep. Your caster and pinion angle are now out of whack because when you lift the Jeep, there are three things that happens. Number one, because your track bar is still stock, your Jeep kind of becomes off-center from the wheel. So the body of the Jeep kind of becomes off-center. The second and third thing that it'll mess up is your caster and pinion angle. When you start to lift the Jeep, it will actually droop your axle forward a little bit and push it backwards. So now you have this axle that's not sitting properly. All right, well, how do you fix that? Well, the easy answer is get longer control arms. Simple as that. The difficult part about that is that longer control arms cost more money, like a lot more money. I mean, you're talking $300-400 for just lower control arms, $300-400 for upper control arms, and you got rears. I mean, you do all of that stuff, you could be spending about $1,000 or more just on control arms and track bars alone. Now, getting longer control arms is a great investment if you are the kind of person that rock crawls or hits some really heavy trails and you want that full articulation, then yes, you should get those type of things because it will give you all of that play. But for me, that's not how I want to build my rig. I'm not trying to rock crawl or do anything crazy. I'm an overlanding guy. I just want to use trails to get from point A to point B, and that's it. I want enough articulation to get over some obstacles, but not have to do a lot of crazy stuff to get there. So the solution for me, and for me to save some money, is using correction brackets. These correction brackets, this one is made by JKS, same company that makes my sway bar disconnects. All this does is it mounts into your vehicle and extends the current stock control arms so that you can get that geometry back. There are many different variations of this. A lot of companies make this. If you're gonna go this route and use correction brackets, get ones that are fully welded like this. They don't come in pieces where you have to kind of bolt them together. This is one solid, hardcore piece that's not gonna break on you. Now, if you just need to correct it in the meantime, and you are gonna be buying control arms very soon, but you wanna correct it for now, then there are cheaper correction brackets that you can get that will probably not last you very long, but will last you long enough until you get your control arms. I really don't plan to get control arms until maybe way down the line. So until then, I need something that will last and that won't break off. And JKS makes some great ones. But before we install it, let me take you for a ride in the Jeep, take it to about 60 to 70 miles per hour so that you can see the kind of vibrations I'm talking about. It's kind of like a shimmy, and that was not there prior to me getting the lift. Back then, 60 to 70 miles per hour, I was just flying down the road just fine. But now when we're getting up to those higher speeds, you start to see it shimmy and shake a little bit. And I want you to see how that looks like. Then after that, we'll go ahead and install the brackets, and then we'll go take the Jeep out for another ride again, and we will see if these actually corrected it. I'm here with Chris, and we are going to show you exactly what happens when I start getting into higher speeds. Right now, I'm cruising at about 20. All right, we are now at 45, 50. All right, so once I start getting to about 65, all right, here.
I can feel it.
You can feel it?
I can already feel
All
it
right,
over
so
here.
take a look at the shift knob. Watch. It starts to like rattle a lot more. You see that?
Yep.
Once I get to like, and this is only 60. It's worse when I get to 70 miles per hour.
Okay.
So this is what I'm hoping will correct it. You may not be able to see it on video as well, but you can definitely feel the bumpiness. Now, as far as alignment, I'm aligned. I'm going straight, it's fine.
Right. I can see your steering wheel vibrating a little bit.
And this is only, I'm not even at 60.
I can feel it in my feet.
Yeah, there it is. On your feet, you feel it a lot.
These front brackets they should definitely help with the steering wheel. I don't know how much it'll help with that, your stick shift, because your pinion angle from a lift is more prevalent on the rear than so much, or it affects the vehicle's drive from the rear more so than it does the front. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that your drive shaft coming out of your transfer case is 2 to 3 times longer to go to the rear than it is the front.
Okay.
Because you're pretty much sitting right over your transfer case right now.
Got it.
And then, you know, your front axle's right here, but your rear axle's, you know, 4 or 5 feet behind you. So that's why pinion angle is more of an issue with your rear than it is with your front. Because really, we're going to really mess with the pinion angle. It's going to look goofy once we put these brackets on for the front. But that's not what gets out of balance when you're going at high speed because it's so short. The main drive axle for everyday driving, that's why you'll notice it at higher speeds. At slow speeds, when you're four-wheeling, that's when you're going to use your front.
Right.
So you're not going to notice a big shimmy or anything like that unless you're in four-wheel drive doing 60, and that's a bad day.
That's a bad day.
So we're disconnecting the arms from the frame, the control arms, the upper and lower, only on one side. Before I add in the bracket, I'm going to loosen them up on the axle side so they're not preloaded. And then we're going to mount the bracket, and we'll bolt everything up.
And then tighten these back up.
Well, we'll tighten them back. We'll tighten everything back up once we do both sides.
Right.
And everything's
the way it is.
the way it needs to be sitting. And then we'll just tighten everything up, torque it to spec. I brought my torque wrench. Torque it to spec, and that's it. It's that simple.
Shh, don't ever say
I
something
know,
as simple.
I just jinxed it.
All right, so we got both control arms out, and we loosened up the bolts on the other end because you want to take the load off of them so you don't ruin the bushings and stuff inside. So we've loosened that up. We are now putting the bracket in place.
Here's the hard part. Getting my fat hand up in here. Doesn't go in the frame. There's an opening right on the back of the frame mount. For it to go in, you kind of got to feel your way around it. Take the bolt down to the bottom and let the thing hang down. That might give you more room.
So before we continue, let me just show you. This is how the control arm looks like after my lift. Kind of bends downwards. Now let's show you what it looks like. And now this is how it's looking like now. You see the very, very big difference in the geometry now, and we're back to basically having it straight like it's supposed to be.
So usually the top hole would be more for like a 2.5 inch. The bottom would be for a taller lift.
Right.
I always see people though start on the bottom hole first and see how it drives. And if it's a little too wandery, you know, and stuff, then they just take this bolt out and move the arm up. Let's try the top then. Let's just do the top.
Okay.
And see what it does. It can be parallel or down. If you notice, your stock one is actually up. What I want to try and do is try to make them about the same.
So let's go to the top hole.
Okay.
All right, now we're moving over to the other side before we tighten the driver's side. Good news is on these Jeeps, this is a 2016, that bolt there, we can get to it easily. Apparently in some other Jeeps,
It's this bolt right here. When the exhaust pipe would come down right here, so when you go to pull this out, it would hit the exhaust pipe. So most people would have to cut it off.
But we don't have to.
But we don't have to. Thank goodness.
I got the top removed. Chris got the bottom one removed. That one came out much easier than the other side. Now we gotta loosen these like we did before. Okay, so the bracket is going in now. There's one side. So your OEM bolts are gonna basically go back where they came from because JKS does not provide you with new bolts for the top. They only provide you bolts for the control arm. So make sure that you keep them. control arm bottom is done. Now we just put up the top one. So this is what we were talking about earlier. The JKS brackets has 2 holes on it for you to mount your upper control arms to. You can either mount it to the top one or the bottom one. We opted for the top one because it looked more parallel to the other control arms, so that's what we're going with. All right, the brackets are installed. There's the passenger side and the driver's side. And then you can see the geometry looks much better than how it was after the lift. All right, so everything is installed now. I can tell you that the Jeep feels like it's gliding a lot more. I'm up to 60 now, and it's not shaking like it was before. You can still feel some shakes, but it's not. This feels more like road shake and not necessarily the vehicle shaking underneath me. This feels more like stock how it did before. Again, it's a Jeep. It's going to be a rough ride no matter what, but now I know why people like Oman Emus, because it feels smoother. It feels like all that stuff, vibration is going to the shocks now and not going up the control arms and into the driving system. So this feels good. Now, I'm not going to do a full-blown recap here because you did see a little bit of that already when we were driving the Jeep back. But I just have to say, I'm so glad I bought these geometry correction brackets. Considering that I could have spent thousands of dollars buying new control arms, these will do the job just fine, especially with how I want my Jeep to function. Like I mentioned, I'm not planning on doing really hardcore rock crawling or anything like that. I just wanted my geometry back, and these were the perfect thing for that. So if you are looking for a way to fix your geometry but don't necessarily want to spend for longer arms, get these because they work really great. Now, I'm not just going to sit here and tell you that these brackets were like magic and suddenly it transformed my ride and I'm now gliding down the road like I'm riding a unicorn. No, that's not what happened. I mean, I still get some of that vibration, but I can guarantee you it's not like what it was before. Before these brackets, you could feel it. Like you could feel it on your feet, you could feel it on your butt, you can feel it in the steering wheel. Like there's a shakiness going on that I just couldn't put my finger on it. It wasn't violent, wasn't crazy, but I just knew something was different. And as soon as we put these brackets on, that vibration pretty much went away. Now, like I said, there are still some vibrations in the Jeep, but I've kind of already had those vibrations before, and that's kind of how it felt like. I mean, that's just what comes with a package when you buy a Jeep. Plus, also keep in mind that these correction brackets are from the front of the transfer case. But this is a rear-wheel drive vehicle, so basically, if I'm still getting some shakiness, there might be some geometry stuff in the back that I also need to address, and I think I can address those with control arms. As far as the track bar is concerned, that can also cause some shakiness. The front is not corrected at all. Now, the rear is, because when I bought the Old Man Emu kit, it did come with correction brackets for the track bar in the rear, but the front track bar, that's not corrected at all. So I'm probably going to get like an adjustable track bar, and that'll help fix that. But I can't wait when I'm actually getting to try this out at 70 to 80 miles per hour and see how it starts to respond then. But I'm just glad that the geometry is finally back. So if it's something that you want to do yourself, if you need to correct your geometry in the front, but don't really want to spend money on control arms, the JKS versions are the way to go. As you could see, they're solid. They're strong, they're not gonna break. I would advise you to not get one of the kits that have different parts that you have to bolt together, because that just is not gonna last you. If it's temporary, then sure, go ahead and get those. But if this is your final solution for your geometry in the front until you get the money for control arms, and that might not be for a while, then spend the $170 and get a pair of these, because, I mean, they did change the ride significantly. But anyway, that's the install. I hope you found it informative, and if you did, please make sure to like our video, subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Baptism Overland. My name is Asia Sampson, and I will see you next time. What's not on video is hearing Chris go ow every 5 seconds.
Or spitting mud out of my mouth, because Asia doesn't know how to wash his Jeep.
It looks like my Jeep had diarrhea under here.